Go ahead.
We'll get going. Thank you very much for coming this evening. This is a joint effort by the Chamber of Commerce and by the League of Women Voters. We pair up for these events, and we're very excited to have our candidates all here this evening and to have you here. Hopefully you have some questions. We did hand out, I believe, little white 3x5s. If you have one and you would like to pose a question, please write on there and someone will come and pick it up. All right?
Okay.
So let me introduce our wonderful friend here, Brandon, who is our moderator for the evening. And we have, sorry.
This is Natalie Price,
Natalie. She's
our official timekeeper.
Thank you.
Really quickly, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for being here. I'm Brandon Johannes. I'm the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, lifelong resident of Leavenworth. I have at least one former teacher in the room, so that's good. And then Becky, whom I've known my entire life. Another former teacher in the room, Dr. Evans. The format for tonight is going to be, we're going to give each candidate 3 minutes for an introductory statement and opening, and then we're going to jump right into questions. The answers will be limited to 2 minutes apiece, because with 6 candidates and only 2 hours, time will be at a premium. The only other thing that two things I'd like to say. One is I would like to thank Natalie Price. She's a freshman at the University of St. Mary. This is her 3rd forum with me, keeping time for me. She started when she was a senior in high school and is still with me. And so thank you, Natalie, for being here with me tonight. I expect everyone in the room to behave at least as well as this 18-year-old college. That's the only other thing that I ask, is I want to make it very clear that at no time will I tolerate any questions that are designed to embarrass any candidates, to attack any candidates. We're here to talk about and listen to them about the issues facing Leavenworth and its future. I know as a lifelong resident that interests me much more than anything else. So without further ado, if the candidates are all ready, I think we'll go ahead and get started. All right, I'm just going to start at one end and work my way down. So Commissioner Weekly, we'll start with you. You have 3 minutes to make an introductory statement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the League of Women Voters for providing this forum. I'm Lisa Weekly, and I'm running, of course, for the City Commission. My education background is a Leavenworth High School senior of 1976 graduate. I am also a St. Mary graduate of 1981. My business experience is Weekly's Antique, a local antique store in our downtown Leavenworth that I ran with my husband, Terry. This was a family business that was started in 1965, which we recently retired. And prior to that, I have about 20 years of experience in the banking industry. I held a variety of positions, including management, marketing, commercial, residential lending, and servicing. So why have I run for the City Commission? Shortly after my husband and I returned to Leavenworth in 1996, we were invited to a Crime Watch meeting. And soon after that, the Northeast Area Revitalization Group was formed, and I was volunteered to represent them at City Commission meetings and bring our concerns to the city. Our Crime Watch group was very successful in lowering crime. We worked with the city on infrastructure and sidewalk improvements, area cleanup projects, historic preservation, but our most extensive achievement was developing property maintenance codes and standards for the city. My work grew out of involvement to improve the community. For over 12 years, this job to me has been public service. Seeing that Leavenworth continues to be all that is best about it, helping people solve their problems and concerns and just being there for them. I discovered that by attending as many events as I can, being out in the community makes me available to as many citizens as possible. I will return your phone call and email, and yes, even when I know I'm going to catch heck for it. Currently, I serve on several community organizations working for animal welfare, seniors, and preservation. Participating in community events and being accessible, I see this as one of my main duties as being an elected official. Why I continue to run and would like to serve is I have proven leadership on the City Commission. I've been proactive in providing incentives to attract new businesses and also incentives to support existing businesses. I've worked within city budgets where doing more with less has prevailed. And I'd like to go forward and build upon our strength in growing a vibrant community where citizens feel safe and where both the young and retired are attracted to live here. and where the business community and local government work together for the benefit of the whole community to expand our tax base and to build a family-friendly community.
Thank you, Commissioner Weekly. Next up, we'll move to Commissioner Rainey. 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Once again, thank you for hosting this forum this evening. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Charles Rainey. I'm currently one of the city commissioners. I was born right here in Leavenworth at St. John's Hospital, so I'm a hometown person here. Went through my schooling here, all except for my senior year, which I spent down in Bowie, Arizona. I came back here the following year after my senior year, went to work here in Leavenworth, mostly bunking and baling hay and cutting tobacco on the Missouri side of the bridge for people who remember. All of us used to do that. Later I went to Minneapolis, went to work up there in 1987 in the chemical companies, and in '89 I met my wife, and we've been together now just over 28 years. Moved back here in Leavenworth in '93. Started getting involved, I went to work, but started getting involved in politics, in the local and national politics about 10 years ago, where I really started getting seriously involved with it. Since that time, in 2010, I became an alternate delegate for Leavenworth County until 2014. I became a precinct captain in 2014 and continue to be so to this day. Became a city commissioner, and I love doing what I'm doing. What I take most out of being a city commissioner is the relationship that's developed with the people. I don't recall, and I could be wrong, but I don't recall any type of email, phone call, text, message that I have not replied to or talked to someone about. The people are what I care most about, the voice of the people. That's why I'm always able to get a hold of me online, on phone. I listen to the people. I have met with people as early as 7 in the morning. I've talked to people online at 2 in the morning. I met with other people at midnight in their law and do their work schedules so I can discuss their problems with them. When I ran for election, I ran on the premise, one of them was trying to bring jobs in Leavenworth, which is why I think Leavenworth is doing a good job in attracting new businesses here within the Leavenworth city limits. I would continue to ask for your support. I would love to continue to serve as a city commissioner, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Rainey. Mr. Bogner, 3 minutes, sir.
My name is Michael Bogner. I'm one of the candidates for City Commission. I was born and raised here in Leavenworth, married a local girl, my wife Cheryl, right there. We just celebrated 37 years of marriage. Have 2 children, a son and a daughter. Recently retired from Fort Leavenworth, working in their Public Works Department for 35 years. I served in a couple of different positions, engineering and architectural and planning. I ran meetings similar to these for the Army up there, the way they're similar things on how they get things done and work at the garrison level, not at the mission level. So I do have some experience in regards to how a city-like operation is and the need for communication. I have 2 engineering degrees from KU. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Kansas. I have served for many years as chairman of the Planning Commission, chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals, which I'm still on, and chairman of the Preservation Commission. I did also serve on the Leavenworth Water Board a few years ago. I guess you can tell I have a deep desire to serve my town, and I would really like to serve it at the next level up, and that's to be your city commissioner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bogner. Commissioner Preisinger.
Thank you. I'm Mark Preisinger. I'm currently the Mayor Pro Tem of Leavenworth, and I've considered Leavenworth my hometown since 1962. I've spent the last 55 years here, except for college years, at the University of Santa Clara, K-State, 6 years in the Army, and 2 years with Johnson & Johnson in Texas. I lived in Thailand for 3 years as the country manager for Hallmark Cards, but maintained my Kansas residency. I've had a job every day of my life since I've been 12 years old. Joanne, my beautiful wife right here, and I have been married for 42 years. We have 2 wonderful and successful children and 3 beautiful granddaughters. I'm a decorated Army veteran, 6 years as an artillery officer. I have the scars, frostbitten feet, and hearing aids to prove it. And I'm a life member of the VFW and the DAV. I'm a graduate of Leavenworth High in 69, I wish it was 89, and went to college on a 4-year ROTC scholarship, one of only 800 that were apportioned throughout the United States at that time. Only 8 were granted in the state of Kansas. I retired from Hallmark Cards and have since been president of my own company. I've spent 8 years on the Leavenworth School Board, 3 years of it as president. I've spent the last 8+ years on the City Commission with 2 stints as mayor. Since on the commission, I spearheaded the hotel development in town. 5 years ago, there wasn't a hotel in this town you'd be proud to put your family in. I called a friend who was the senior vice president of Hilton, asked him to evaluate our hotel situation. He came back in 2 weeks. He said, until you get your per diem on par with the rest of the counties that you're tangent with, no hotel will come there. We lobbied, got our per diem raised, and now, as you can see, we've got 2 hotels, 2 more on the way, so a year from now we'll have 4 name brand decent hotels. I've been a champion for code enforcement and removal of blighted properties in the city. Since 2009, there have been more code violations cited, more blighted, dilapidated properties removed than ever before. This process is by no means complete and needs to continue. Until 3 years ago, there's no littering laws in Leavenworth. Upon discovering that, I proposed an ordinance for littering. It was passed, and there's now up to a $500 fine for littering. Chief Kitchens told me last couple weeks ago that an officer told me about an officer who gave the first littering ticket. Leavenworth used to have the highest property tax of any first-class city in the state of Kansas. We were 8 times higher than Overland Park. I championed and pushed for 4 years to put sales tax replacement on the ballot, that the property tax relief be replaced with sales tax. It did pass, went to the people, passed it 70%. We now are on par with all the other cities, and over 35% of our sales tax is paid by people outside of Leavenworth. It's a great deal and our property tax is down 35%, or a 40% reduction, the largest in the state, the largest in the United States of America, single property tax reduction. We need to improve our public safety, the outstanding fire and police protection. We have the best fleet in the fire department in our area, and we have just approved a budget for 2018 and beyond that beefs up our PD for cyber crimes, drug enforcement, and traffic.
That's time, Commissioner.
Okay, I would appreciate your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on, Mr. Griswold.
My name is Mike Griswold. Good evening, everybody. And I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Leavenworth Lansing Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring the forum this evening. I'd also like to thank the citizens in the audience for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in the forum. In my opening remarks, I will pose and answer 3 questions. They are, why am I running? What are my qualifications? And what do I want to get done? Why am I running? I hear from friends, colleagues, and citizens in general that nothing changes in Leavenworth. I agree, and I am tired of the status quo. I love my hometown and believe that there's a great reservoir of untapped potential within Leavenworth. I have the leadership ability, the experience, the expertise, the energy, values to unleash this potential and also help improve the quality of life for all citizens within the city. What are my qualifications? I've been a Leavenworth resident since 2002 when my wife and I and family moved from Fort Leavenworth. 2 of our 3 children graduated from Leavenworth High School, and our oldest granddaughter also is a graduate. I'm a West Point graduate, retired colonel, 30 years of active service. During my career, my focus was on problem solving, leadership, leader development, financial management, personnel management. I've continued that focus during my 14 years of business in the business field over the last 14 years. I've been a program manager of 2 programs totaling in excess of $50+ million, and I also have been a senior strategic analyst for one of those companies. I have 3 master's degrees, including 2 in the financial management area, 1 a executive MBA from Rockhurst University, and finally I have a quarter of a century of board governance experience with Armed Forces Insurance, 17 years and 8 years as the board president of the Fort Leavenworth School District. What do I want to get done? Father Theodore Hesburgh, the late and renowned president of the University of Notre Dame once said, the very essence of leadership is that you must have a vision. You can't blow an uncertain trumpet. So the question must be asked, does the city of Leavenworth have a vision for the future, or is it blowing an uncertain trumpet? I have concluded that the city is blowing an uncertain trumpet. So what I would like to do is to work with citizens within the city, business leaders, educational leaders, the city manager and fellow commissioners to develop a unifying, achievable, and forward-thinking vision for the city. I'll be happy to answer your questions and give you a little bit more idea of my suggestions and ideas going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Griswold. Mr. Wilson.
Good afternoon. My name is Jermaine Wilson. I just want to start off by saying thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity just to be able to run for the Leavenworth City Commissioner position. I am a father of 5 children. My beautiful wife Jessica is in the audience, as well as my parents. I'm the founder of Unity in the Community Movement organization, which have been serving the community for the past 2 years. It's about bringing the people together, not worrying about the racism or the division, but actually helping to meet the needs of the people in the community, serving those that are less fortunate. I am a government contractor on Fort Leavenworth. I'm in charge of the inventory management and the data entry that takes place in the location as well. I've been up there for the past 5 years. My goals for running for the Leavenworth City Commissioner position: I want to be a voice for the people inside of this community. I want to help create the change that is needed that's going to make our community a safer and better place. I am an example of change. I know what change looks like, and I know what change needs to be done inside of this community. At the age of 20 years old, I was sentenced to prison for 3 years. I was convicted for possession of ecstasy pills, drugs, but while I was in prison, I didn't allow that crime to stop me from moving forward. I didn't allow that crime to stop me from making a change in my life. I gave my life to Jesus, and when I gave my life to Jesus, God revealed to me what my purpose in life was. My purpose was to teach kids not to make the same mistakes I made, to unite this community. Don't worry about your past mistakes and the things that you've been through, but to move forward in life. So once I was released from prison, I remember those things that I learned while I was in prison. After successfully completing my parole, I became a mentor inside of the prison that I was once incarcerated at. I was blessed with the government job. That's a job that I currently have. I started the Unity in the Community movement, where we're uniting, where we're actually bridging the gap between the people in our community as well as with the police department. It's not about what you look like or the things that you might have done in life, but it's about moving forward. And with the experiences and the things that I've learned about being a representation of change, it's about getting out front, not just being a doer, but being proactive and help resolving those things that needs to be completed. So just on the platform of serving this community, it wasn't about just the city commissioner position. I wanted to do it because I see that there was a need as a civilian. Once God revealed to me that there needs to be someone that's going to represent the people inside of the community, that's when I made the decision to run for the Leavenworth City Commissioner position. I'm thankful, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to serve this people, to be able to help the people, and to be an example of change, and to do the things that it needs to be done that's going to help bring change inside of this community. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the first question. I'm going to start actually back with Mr. Wilson and work our way back down the dais. The first question, because it seems to be very prominent on people's minds right now, is going to deal with business and bringing new business to the area. With the recent activity in Tonganoxie with Tyson, our question, actually several questions that we had submitted, revolve around this matter. And so the general question I would ask you is, how do you feel about attracting new business to the area? And what do you think Leavenworth can do to attract new business? Mr. Wilson, we'll start with you. 2-minute answer.
Well, it's all about finding the right location. I definitely believe we need more jobs up on the northeastern part of Leavenworth. Most of the jobs are in the southern part of the town. With the Tyson job that's coming out to location, I'm very supportive of bringing new jobs in, but to bring the Tyson company inside of the Tonganoxie area, I'm not in support of it. Just doing the research due to the history of the things that it may done that's not helpful to small towns such in that area. So I would definitely love to see new jobs come to Leavenworth on the northeastern part of town where it's needed the most.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Griswold, 2 minutes, please.
Growth is one of the 5 areas that Leavenworth must have a vision. And when I'm talking about growth, I'm talking about increasing economic opportunities for citizens and businesses alike. The commission currently, and I would strongly support this and even strengthen our relationships with the Leavenworth County Development Corporation for looking into businesses that would be a good fit for the city of Leavenworth and Leavenworth Main Street, which focuses on the businesses downtown. There has been progress made in that area, but I think in terms of strengthening our relationship with those 2 organizations and reaching out across the community to even strengthen relationships with educational institutions, other community groups, would be part of the process for looking into attracting good businesses to Leavenworth. And my feeling about growth is that either a community, a city, a county is either growing or it isn't. The disadvantages or and the risks associated with not growing are a concern. Depopulation, businesses shuttering their doors, school districts not getting the funds they need to educate students, and just generally an atrophy of the quality of life and the vitality of cities. So growth is one of the 5 areas that we need to come together and develop a vision for the future of Leavenworth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger.
Thank you. The city of Leavenworth has programs and policies in place to help attract new business. One of the latest ones, of course, is the new industrial park, the 90 acres out off Eisenhower. The current industrial park is mostly full. That will be, it's shovel-ready now. It's working right now. It'll be completed next June 1st, I believe. And we've already have inquiries for companies, employers to come there. We always entertain any businesses that want to come to Leavenworth. We work closely with Leavenworth County Development Corporation, LCDC. Their job is to bring interested parties to the table, whether it be the city, the county, and I'm only going to comment on the city's options there. They bring to us, to the city leaders, city managers. We look at opportunities that we can give them some incentives to possibly bring them here. We have been able to bring some businesses here, obviously. We have four hotels that bring in some jobs, but then the ancillary businesses that spring up around those hotels, restaurants, et cetera. We are always looking for the opportunities to bring new business, good employment to this town, and we'll never stop that. We have a good tax rate, property tax rate. Businesses do look at that, and we'll continue to do so. We will entertain all people that are interested. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner.
I agree along with everyone else that a city has to move forward, not backward. We've seen a number of businesses leave our community over the years, including like JCPenney's or shoe stores, any of those basic services that now you have to drive to Kansas City for. And yes, I wish we could bring something like that back into town. You have to have a good fit, though, for the community so that the community and the businesses get along together. I think that's part of the problem with Tonganoxie. They were brought in late. They weren't asked their opinion. They weren't part of the process. And I think the process itself will weed out those things that either people like or don't like, or that the businesses will be able to survive. It also depends on the talent of the workforce that's available. And lastly, in order to get people to come to a town, they need to have affordable housing, they need to feel safe in the community, and they need to have really good schools. And I think those are the things that we can work on right away and prepare the base for the businesses to come later. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rainey.
Yes, new businesses are something, again, that it's going to be repeated, but we are always encouraged to bring into town. Since I have been on the commission, I have seen several businesses come to town and expand. Luigi's has moved and expanded. Merriweather's has come to town. McDermott just opened up downtown a new little deli. The hotel's going up. The industrial park, I'm very excited about that. And as has been mentioned, we do have businesses that are inquiring about coming there already. We've got bakery coming to town. There's a new laundry service on Shawnee that's going to be opening up. We do have some new businesses coming to town, and as stated before, we as a city want to attract as many as we can. More jobs, more tax dollars. It increases shopping, the businesses here in Leavenworth. So we will continue as a city commission to always work with new businesses and bringing them to town.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Weekly.
Thank you. We have brought new business to downtown. Our multiple hotel development, the warehouse development has revitalized many of our warehouses in the downtown district. Those are jobs coming to our downtown and northeast area. We have a full business park. We're working on a second business park on that. And as mentioned too, there are already inquiries to making inquiries to come to our business park on that, and a lot of interest on that. We do work with the school board on a regular basis to make sure that our schools are being highlighted in the best possible light, because we do have good schools here. And that. We also have worked with the Pioneer Partnership to bring trade schools here and have supported that as a commission. We're one of the few cities that offers incentives and retail incentives to come to our community, working hand in hand with Main Street on that as our partnership. I am a member of Main Street and worked on their board with them. I regularly attend the LCDC meetings to make sure that our interests and our economic dollars are wisely used there. And yes, we do need transparency and have a good fit for our community, and that I can assure you that as working as your commissioner, I would continue to do that.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question, we're going to move over to Mr. Griswold first. Several folks submitted questions about the issue of community policing, specifically how they feel community policing has helped mitigate crime levels in town, whether they be gang activities, drug activities, violent crimes, et cetera. What is your stand on community policing, and what would you do to increase support for community policing?
Since 2014, there's been a significant uptick within the city of thefts, auto thefts, and robberies, mostly due to illegal drug activity, methamphetamine, and prescription opioids. The number of arrests, however, have decreased. In part to deal with these trends, the police department budget for 2018 is being increased by over $250,000, including money to pay for an additional narcotics detective, and I think that's a good move. I attended the budget hearing back in, I believe it was July, and that was a very good response by the current commission. I may have pressed them a little bit, or pressed the police chief a little bit harder for why not part of that money for our second narcotics detective, but I think that money has gone towards a cyber detective to investigate cyber crimes. One of the things that I would like in terms of community policing, I don't think there's a real robust camera program within the downtown. I think that this needs to be looked at. High-resolution cameras, maybe not blanketing the downtown, but at places, particularly bars that are open to the wee hours of the morning, would be a good idea to discourage and be a deterrent to crime, but also if there is crime committed, that we're able to get to the bottom of it and make arrests maybe more quickly than have happened with some of the incidents in the recent past. And the other thing I would say is that suicide calls have been increasing over the years, so this situation with mental health, that is a real challenge for our police officers, and I want to make sure, and one of the things that I would ask if elected, are they getting the training that they need to deal with these type of calls, which are both dangerous and increasing. We're not any different than other cities in the state or across the nation, but this is an area that I am concerned about and I would follow up on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger.
As Mr. Griswold said, and as we've stated earlier, we have increased the police department's budget for 2018 and beyond, that we're bringing on a narcotics detective, traffic enforcement division, as well as cyber crimes detective officer. We, over the last 15 years or so, the City Commission has never raised the city property tax. We obviously lowered it 40% a few years ago based on the sales tax. Keeping the taxes level, we had some tough decisions to make, and some of it, to make everything work, we could not increase different departments. We're now in a position that we can do that without increasing your taxes, and we are going to beef up that police department. We recognize that there are issues that have to be addressed, and we are addressing those. And starting the budget in 2018, you're going to see more officers on the street, more officers investigating drug crimes, and obviously we'll have a cyber crime officer. To inform you on the cyber crimes, it's not going to be if you get an email from a Nigerian prince and they're going to, sign up and we'll give you $1 million. It's not that, but cyberbullying, things like that happen on a local level is what our cyber crimes officer will be working with. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner.
Well, first off, sometimes it doesn't matter how much money you throw at an entity to try and make it better. Sometimes it's a lack of training, sometimes it's better recruitment, sometimes it's focusing on the most important things that are out there. I would hope that, the budgets don't always continue to grow, so you need to live with what you've got. You need to get better at what you're doing. And I would hope that we could do that first before we rely on throwing extra money at other things. The other part of policing that I'm concerned about is code enforcement, which is handled by a different department. And I think part of a community is what does it look like, and people will act appropriately. If it looks trashy, then people will act trashy. If it looks cleaned up, then you have a little respect for yourself, for your neighbors. And so I would throw that in when anybody talks about policing the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rainey.
Well, once again, I'm going to echo a couple of things that we've already heard. We, the city, again, we budgeted for the help in the police department. There's no community that's ever going to be a utopia. There's no community that's ever going to be crime-free. We're going to have our problems. The best thing we can do is meet these problems and address them as needed, which I feel that we have done with this budget and the improvement of the police department, the officers, and the departments that we've got going on. So I'm very proud of the police department that we do have. I know they work very hard. I've communicated with a lot of officers one-on-one and appreciate the jobs they do out there. As far as community part of it, I know online I have talked to a lot of people about the possibilities of neighborhood watch programs and about what actually your neighbors can do to help curb crime in their neighborhoods. If you're looking for a neighborhood watch program, I would suggest getting with your neighbors and then getting with the chief of police to see how that might benefit your neighborhood. You can also do a little yourself by just paying attention to your neighbors, getting out and meeting your neighborhood, getting outside and witnessing what's going on, keeping track and record of what you think may be going on and doing a diligent job in reporting it for the safety of your neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Weekly.
I have been a strong proponent for community policing since 1996, before I was on the commission. And this happened with, I said in my opening comments, with the Northeast area. That's what we were originally were. We're a crime watch unit, neighborhood watch unit. I have worked hand in hand with the police and with people sitting in my living room, working together, hammering out really what community policing is. So I do know what this is. I do know that it's effective and that we need to work strongly with our police department to give them the resources that they continue to have a community policing policy on that. The police department over the number of years has had a lot of challenges with staffing, like many cities. We're not unique to that. Crime is something that we're always going to need to work on. It's the ebb and flow, the back and forth of that to keep it at bay within our community on that. As again, the increases that we've offered to the police department in the 2018 budget will also alleviate the problems that we have and give the police officers better resources on that. But if I would urge any citizen to contact me if they have concerns, because I would like to work with them one-on-one to develop a crime watch in their area And I would urge them to do that. It's very effective on that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Wilson?
I believe the increase in officers is going to be helpful, especially with the accountability. One thing I definitely know that needs to be established, there needs to be trust with the people in the community as well as the police officers. I remember growing up as a child, one thing that we always used to look forward to when we see police officers is used to hand us baseball cards. And it's like people weren't afraid to call the police officers now. Our police officers have done a great job, especially being proactive and moving toward the direction to interacting with the people in the community, working hand in hand with the residents and the police officers. I think this needs to be more, especially with the new officers coming on board. Just more events created so that trust is actually there. So when people see police officers, they're not afraid. And when they see crimes taking place, people are not afraid to call the officers. But there has to be some type of trust. And the people in the community, they have to be proactive. When they see things, they can't just say that I'm not going to call the officers because it's not my problem. As a community, we all have to be proactive when it comes to that situation, because the police officers, they can't guard and govern all the streets. As a community, we need to work hand in hand with our police officers.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger, we're going to start with you this time, and I'm pretty sure I know how you're going to answer this question since you mentioned it in your opening. But the good thing about this question is it's actually several questions in one, so I would encourage you all not to necessarily answer the same question, but if you want to pick a part of it to jump onto, I'll go ahead and read the whole thing to you here and let you go, run with it. What are your ideas about providing quality and/or more affordable housing in Leavenworth? Do you support better oversight of rental housing, especially for absentee landlords and substandard properties for rent? Or how can Leavenworth encourage better property maintenance and more owner-occupied housing? So basically a general housing question, and Commissioner Preisinger, we'll start with you.
Okay, I'll start on the better property maintenance. Code enforcement and removal of blighted housing has been one of the things that I've championed quite a bit since 2009 and continue to do so. I suspect I'm the largest single reporter of code enforcement violations in this city. Turned in 3 this week that I know they've worked on. And I usually turn in 8 to 10 a month. We have to push that, as Mr. Griswold or Mr. Bogner said. Curb appeal means a lot when people come to this town. I mean, if your town looks like poorly maintained, people think it's a poorly maintained town. So we have to put a lot of teeth in our code enforcement and hold people's feet to the fire. Better oversight of rentals, yes, yeah, that is a big elephant to chew on. It was tried, some motions were made on that 6-7 years ago, and there was an uproar among the owners of rental properties on how we do it, how we would enforce that. Nothing did go forward. We do have an issue with, we have a lot of rentals in this town. Approximately 43 to 45% of all of our housing in town are rental properties. We have some great landlords, and we have some landlords that I am disgusted with, and I think all of you know that too. And I think that we do somehow need to bring up that program again and say, how can we have a better oversight of rentals? Providing housing, it's a supply and demand issue. We have investors, we have builders. If they see the supply or the demand go up, they'll provide the supply. It's not a government position to build affordable housing, single-family units. That's a business decision. But if we provide a good city, good place to live, work, and invest, builders will build affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner.
First of all, I don't think the city wants to get into the housing business or housing market, but I certainly understand our role and responsibility to control what is built up to code, maintained, code enforcement, get rid of dilapidated houses. I know there's an issue with absentee landlords and trying to get a hold of them. Curb appeal. You won't want to live in a neighborhood that looks run down. So that is all part of the big picture. Attracting people to neighborhoods starts with the neighborhood, not necessarily the rents. People will pay a little bit more if they think they're going to live in a nice, safe neighborhood. So maybe the police patrols or foot patrols, can be added to that. That is something that the city has a little bit of control over. But The things that the city can do for that, I think we need to step it up a little bit more and use our people in the Community Development Office to research things like affordable housing and management of those programs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rainey.
Thank you. The housing issue, I have a little bit of a different point of view on that. I have the theory of out with the old, in with the new. As the city changes and your demographic starts changing a little bit, your jobs start changing a little bit, you start running with getting dilapidated houses, which I've always been on board with the other commissioners as far as getting them taken down as soon as possible. And so you're going to get the old out of here, which is going to help improve the quality of the neighborhoods. In with the new, I'm a firm believer that housing development comes when you have jobs that you offer people to come to town in order to build these houses, in order to move into these houses. So I'm a firm believer that if we get the jobs needed to be out at the industrial park and we bring in good paying jobs, you will have the base then to also continue to look at the type of housing industries that we are bringing in. And on a side note on that, I think we just currently we did a rezoning on New Lawrence Road for a new housing industry in complex up in that area as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Weekly.
I've had some very definite ideas on this, on our rental housing standards. I would like to be able to allow inside inspections. Right now, if you receive any type of federal assistance, which is pretty common in our city, you at least have to apply HUD standards and that. And those are monitored. We're the Housing Authority as a city commission, and those are monitored. I would like to see those standards apply to all rental properties, whether they receive federal assistance or not on that. For better property maintenance code, I helped write the property maintenance code. Leavenworth didn't even have one. It is more than 10 years old, though, right now. I think that we do need to revisit that and up its standards on that. I think also with the city commission upping its standards on that, we would take a harder look at code enforcement, maybe look at offering our code enforcement officers stronger enforcement policies on that. Right now, we only demo vacant houses, and with our community development block grant money, that is shrinking every year on that. So for the first time in our city budget, we recognize this as an issue. In the 2018 budget, we set aside blight removal funds of our own because to offset those shrinking dollars that are coming from the city. So it's a long ongoing problem, and I just think we need stronger and updated enforcement.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wilson.
I would definitely love to see the code enforcement being enforced a lot stricter. Every couple of years, I would definitely love to see an in-house inspection. There's a lot of times that goes by the houses on the northeastern part of Leavenworth. They're ran by certain property owners. Some have mold inside of the houses. When people move out, they just throw some paint on it, then just move people right in. So to actually have in-house code enforcement, I think that would definitely help out. And also just providing a safe, clean environment all around. It'll help the people in the community to take pride in their community as well, too. And I truly believe once you paint a picture that's going to be positive and clean, it also help people take pride in their community, and we can kind of weave out some of the negative things that try to come inside of those communities.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Griswold.
Two of the areas that Leavenworth must develop a vision for are the appearance and image of the city. Two of the 3 points that were brought up, better property maintenance, code enforcement, and rental housing standards fall into these 2 areas of appearance and image. And while I am strongly supportive of the efforts of the commissioners, and especially Mr. Preisinger, in terms of trying to clean up the appearance and improve the image of the city, I know that there's still a heck of a lot of work that has to be done. There's 3 houses out on Metropolitan between Potawatomi and Osage that are in deplorable condition. What is, the people that come in our city, that's what they see. And it's not acceptable. And I don't know all the nuts and bolts. Part of it's probably the codes that are written, and hopefully they're strong enough, but they have to be enforced. So I just bring that up as one as one example of what I'm talking about. In terms of rental housing, their rental housing standards need to be high. I mean, I am concerned about the quality of life of the residents in our rental properties across the city. One of my adult sons was, several years ago, lived in Abernathy Lofts. That was a property that was renovated and opened, I think, in 2003. Initially, and I talked to residents when he was in that facility, and I saw it with my own eyes. Initially, the first couple years, things were good. Maintenance was upheld, good services, and then over time, those services, keeping the facility clean on the inside, maintaining it, just dropped off, and that's not acceptable. So I don't know, maybe we need a helpline or something, but I was frustrated and not happy about that situation for my son and his fellow residents. And in terms of quality housing and affordable housing, I'd like to associate my feelings on that with Mr. Rainey. Good jobs will bring quality and affordable housing to the community.
Thank you, sir. Next question. For each of you personally, what is something you would like to work toward changing in the city of Leavenworth? We're going to start with you, Mr. Bogner.
Well, I'm not sure that I would categorize it as changing. I would say maybe some improvements, process improvements, full disclosure, community involvement, getting more people involved in what's going on with the city, for not only the residents to take ownership of their town, but also to know that their voices will be heard and that the commission will act, hopefully, based on recommendations that come from those committees and from that input, rather than decisions being made in this building.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rainey.
Let's see, what would I like to change? I think some of the things I would like to see change are actually some of the things we're working on changing. The image of downtown, we would like to see a little change down there with more traffic, more foot traffic that is, more shoppers. And I think we're working on that pretty well right now. Lower crime, I think any city would love to see lower crime within the residencies. And again, this is something that the current city commission has been working on. It's something that we've funded and we're fully behind. Trying to think of a couple other things that we might want to change. Again, one of the things I want to see is more jobs, just more jobs, more employment. Again, this goes back to helping our tax base. It goes back to helping our housing situation. So those are the things I wouldn't classify as changing, but I would say improving for sure.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Weekly.
What I would really like to see, and it's the hard things to work on, is improve our highway access to the metro area. That would greatly help improve our economic development abilities in attracting jobs and living wage jobs to our community. Because with those living wage jobs comes new housing and that. And then with that follows retail on that. So again, to me, it would be promoting economic development, and once that, and continue working towards that direction, and a prosperous community falls into place in other places.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wilson.
Reducing the crime rate, bringing hope to the city, investing off in the youth and family activities. I would definitely love to see the Riverfest come back. I truly believe that was a great event that united the people in the community. We all had a great time. I also want to see community involvement, as well as getting some mental health programs that actually target the area of those that are homeless, that needs that assistance. So I would definitely love to see mental health programs as well, too.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Griswold.
I'd like to see the voice of the citizen, more attention paid by the commission to the voice of the citizen. And what I'm talking about, in business, we talk about the voice of the customer. But we need to be more attentive and solicit input from citizens across the city. In walking various neighborhoods, I've talked to people, and they don't feel that their views are being solicited. Of course, during campaign seasons, that happens. But between the campaigns and the elections, they don't feel that is happening. So that is one thing that I would like to put increased emphasis on in terms of the culture and the attitude of the commission and the people who work in the city government. Relationship building. Relationship building is all about the 21st century, and this is one of the things that's different from the 21st century and the 20th century. within the city. I'd like to see a teams-to-teams approach. The importance of that and the synergy that could be created, fostering teamwork between city government, the business community, community organizations serving various other constituencies, the school district, Fort Leavenworth, institutions of higher learning, of which we have great institutions of higher learning, St. Mary's, KU, Webster, Barton Community College, Kansas City, Kansas Community College, and then with the citizens in general, will elevate the effectiveness of all these entities and lead to a more creative process for solutions that we may not be thinking about, that may be applicable to Leavenworth going forward, and put options on the table that we can evaluate and do our due diligence and really come up with the most cost-effective solutions for the problems that face the city of Leavenworth. And then finally, strategic communication. I don't think this is a strength of the city commission or the city or the county. It can be improved. Just the quality of the television that we see on Tuesday evenings, that can be improved. There's so many means of getting the word out in the 21st century, and we need to do better in that area.
Thank you, sir. And finally, Commissioner Preisinger.
There's a couple things. One, I've been in business for about 40 years, and I understand what businesses look for. They need to deliver their product to the customer, and the customers buy it. When we look for industry to come to Leavenworth, one of the things that we always have a tough time selling is our access to the interstate. If you have a product you're developing, and you have to move it through interstate commerce. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there was one stoplight between, 25 years ago, there was no stoplights between Leavenworth and the Turnpike. There was a flashing yellow light at Victory Junction. 20-some years ago, the first stoplight went in at Leavenworth Road for the racetrack, for the Woodlands, so the traffic expecting there. Now count them. There's 8 stoplights between here and the Turnpike. That causes businesses trouble. If they want to move product by truck down to the interstate, they see that what is supposed to be a 10-minute, 12-minute ride is now a 25-minute ride. The master plan of KDOT was that is supposed to be a superhighway. By the lobbying of what the state has done with KDOT over the last few years, they have just put in stoplights, and that does hurt us. I have pushed, and I know this commission has pushed with the state, saying let's activate the master plan for K7 to keep it as a highway. I don't know if it'll be done. Hopefully with the new legislature, they'll realize that that's economic development issue. Code enforcement. Code enforcement is one of my biggest things. Places this town, property owners, some of them are just flat out slop cans. We know it, we all know it, and they have to be enforced. We are tearing down houses, we're continuing tearing down. I think one of the houses that Mr. Griswold mentioned is on the tear down list, and they should be torn down by around the 1st of November. We've got 10 of them coming down here over the next 6 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next question. A couple of you did mention infrastructure in the previous question, and I would like to ask a more specifically targeted question about infrastructure. Those of us especially who work in and with the business community, and those of us I think who have lived here a long time are very curious about this issue. It's come up a lot over the last couple of years, and are there, excuse me, I lost my place for a second. If and or when the Centennial Bridge was to be replaced, would you support a toll to help fund it, and or in general, what are your thoughts on replacing the Centennial Bridge? Commissioner Rainey, we'll start with you.
The Centennial Bridge, I think it was last year or the year before, I attended virtually every meeting that was taking place in Lansing and Leavenworth that involved the replacement of the Centennial Bridge. From what we were to understand after going through the meetings, that the structural of the bridge with proper maintenance is good for another 30 years. They did come to an agreement that if the bridge were to be built, it would be built on the north side of where the bridge is right now. We even went too far as to okay a design for the bridge. But again, this is a case of what we used to call the tail wagging the dog. This is a case where the bridge and the idea was there, but the money was never there. So I doubt it'll ever happen. The bridge we have is in good shape. Like I said, it's good for 30 years with proper maintenance. And as far as a toll is concerned, I would be 100% against any toll on any bridge crossing that river.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Weekly.
For a long time, I've been a proponent of expanding the Centennial Bridge, and working with KDOT fell on deaf ears for many years, until we started discussing, would you consider a toll bridge that it had in the past? It's difficult for a small community of our size even to get into the queue with KDOT funding, much less get their attention. on that. Right now, the Centennial Bridge is a plan sitting on the shelf, which is very frustrating to me. Yes, I would support a toll bridge because it would get that bridge built today. That is not a new concept in this community. The original bridge was a toll bridge with a sunset on that, so I would support that. That's probably the only way that that plan is going to get off that shelf, and you're going to get a two-way bridge in this community.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wilson?
I'm not in support of building the bridge. I truly believe that there's nothing wrong with the bridge currently, and I definitely don't support having a toll booth to support the bridge if they were to decide to build a new bridge.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Griswold?
The Centennial Bridge is 63 years old. I think there's been one relatively recent repair project on the bridge, but the question remains, how much longer will this two-lane bridge be safe? Mr. Rainey has answered that question, but 30 years can go by pretty quickly. So I would like to associate myself with Mrs. Weekly's comments. I do think the commission needs to continue to look at this. I mean, look at Atchison, and I know that money probably came from the state and the federal. That's a beautiful bridge up there.
Yes.
And we've got more activity, more things happening in this particular city than up in Atchison. And so I would be supportive of at least looking at the possibility of a toll bridge. I talked to, a business leader who grew up here as a kid, and back then it was a toll bridge. But you have to look at those things, look at the pros and cons, and see what would be most cost effective. But I am concerned. 30 years may seem like a long time, but it's really not. The other thing are the bridges over I think there's 15 bridges between the Justice Center and the Metropolitan Steakhouse over the 3 Mile Creek. Of course, one that now is being replaced on 2nd Street. I think there's been some repairs on some others, but this is another thing the commission is going to have to look at, is what condition are those other 13 bridges or 14 bridges that are not being repaired right now, and what needs to be done, and what do we need to build into our capital improvements budget to make sure that they remain safe for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger?
I'm in favor of the Centennial Bridge expansion. The cost is $60 to $80 million. I don't think it should be borne by the citizens of Leavenworth. I've been to D.C. many times, talked with the Federal Highway Administration, our legislators, our senators, and our representatives, Senator Roberts, Senator Moran, Representative Jenkins, about this project. The argument that I make is the Centennial Bridge is critical to the economic security of the United States of America. When that river floods again, and it will flood again, and floods out I-29, if you remember about 5 years ago, all the truck traffic that needed to go up to Minnesota or Canada had to divert at Platte City, come through Leavenworth, and couldn't get back on I-29 till someplace in Nebraska. Thousands and thousands of trucks a day. And if there's a wreck on that bridge, I mean, you're cutting off economics in America. I've argued that with D.C., and I did in election years. Senator Moran and Roberts and Representative Jenkins were listening. I'm hoping that we can get some help. It needs to be a 4-lane bridge. It doesn't make much sense to have a 4-lane bridge going into a 2-lane farm road to I-29. That 8 miles of Highway 45, 92 to I-29 needs to be 4 lanes, so we have a 4-lane bridge. We need Missouri on board with it. We have discussed with Missouri Senator Bond as well as the Platte County Commissioners. Right now, they don't have much interest in making that a 4-lane road, but it'd be great if it was a 4-lane road, 4-lane bridge all the way over to I-29. Would help us, help Platte City. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner?
Okay, I'm a little biased. I was part of the Fort Leavenworth committee that sat in on the entire study for that bridge. And from an engineering standpoint, it was a flawed study. I believe it was prepared at the request of the city on what was the quickest way to get a new bridge across there, rather than the most prudent way. As Mr. Griswold pointed out, the Atchison Bridge supposedly was the last bridge funded by KDOT. KDOT owns this one. KDOT has the responsibility for paying for the replacement or the repairs for this one. Does it need 4 lanes? No, there is no justification for 4 lanes at this time. In fact, the majority of the bridge is used by people that either work or live at Fort Leavenworth. If you charge a toll, they will move from the Missouri side to the Kansas side. They have already started to do that. They're going down by the Legends to live. rather than on the Missouri side. So that argument is flawed. I also talked to the representatives from MoDOT, the engineers, along with the KDOT engineers. Missouri has no interest in doing anything with that road. It does not support any economic development for them at all. So if we sit and wait, it will still be a 4-lane bridge that goes down to 2 lanes, and that is just not practical or fiscally responsible.
Thank you, sir. Some of you have touched upon this next topic in more general terms, but it has been submitted as a question, as a specific question. And so, starting with Commissioner Weekly, I'd like to ask what your thoughts are on what can be done, what the city can do to strengthen, revitalize, improve, whichever adjective you'd care to use, our downtown.
Well, actually, I think we've got a pretty good track record in working and revitalizing the downtown. Our warehouse district reflects that. Our hotels that have come in support of that. We've promoted loft living in our downtown. We need to continue to do that, I think. Through our front facade incentives and that, we offer the opportunity for businesses and building owners to address their, and fix up the look of their building. I'd say what I would like to see maybe continue with revitalizing is probably what we did very similar on Delaware Street. We enhanced Delaware Street. I think that needs to continue on Shawnee Street and on Cherokee Street so that our downtown has a more cohesive look. And then as the crossroads go, it probably wouldn't be the same or elaborate as on Delaware because each street has a different character. But I would really like to see a lot of those elements taken and fit the character of each of those streets to enhance and give a cohesive look to the downtown area. Working also with Main Street would be important for that. And then something that we discussed just recently the other night, looking at signage, directional signage, and what amenities we have in the downtown to make our downtown more user and tourist friendly on that. I'd like to continue to work hand in hand with Main Street on those issues.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wilson?
I would definitely love for the city to create more community events. This is actually, we get the people down in the community and see the businesses that we have there. I would definitely love to see seasonal decorations, things that attract the people to come down to the community. So when they see the downtown area, it just doesn't look the same. It'll actually have something that'll fit that particular season. And I truly believe that'll attract more people as well.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Griswold?
Revitalization of downtown is absolutely essential. There have been things the current commission has worked on and I think have been successful. Ms. Weekly mentioned the grants for the facades. That's a very positive program. I know that Grow Leavenworth County has available loans that hopefully for people who are looking to start small businesses, to be merchants in the city of Leavenworth, they would take a look at that and see how that could incentivize them and put them in a position to invest and start a business in downtown. Also, the community events that were mentioned, the old Buffalo Bill Days Festival. I understand that the city never really was the main driver of that was done by Leavenworth Main Street or the predecessor organizations to Leavenworth Main Street. So I think it's time for the city to take on that responsibility and maybe be creative about what the themes would be. They could change from year to year. There's a lot of great things that Leavenworth is known for, including its sports, its art, its music, of course its military, its connection to the military community of Fort Leavenworth. So let's be creative about what this particular city festival, annual city festival could be. And I would encourage the city commission to get behind that. The other thing I would say is that in terms of image and appearance, in the middle of downtown, probably pretty good. As you get further west in downtown, there are some businesses, and I hate to point out this particular one, but the one with the Volkswagen on the top of the building, I mean, it looks ridiculous. That's not the image that I think Leavenworth needs for its citizens or the people who are coming in to take their business to the merchants in downtown. So there is work to do on the image appearance part of the downtown, and I would be very supportive of that.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger.
I'm also in favor of revitalizing downtown as much as possible. We do have incentive programs, facade improvement programs, different incentives we'll give to businesses coming there. We have to increase traffic downtown. Some of the businesses downtown report that their traffic has increased with the hotels, the Hampton and the Marriott. The Marriott actually has a van that brings people downtown to restaurants and various things. When the Hilton opens up next month or early November, that will help. And of course, that new one, the other Marriott property will help. We are improving the Christmas decorations this year downtown. We have money from the Convention and Visitors Bureau from the hotel taxes, which have obviously increased immeasurably over the last few years, that only can be spent for tourism-type activities. And that's kind of a loosely interpreted what are tourism activities, and downtown decorations are one of those. Some people reported, I think one of the commissioners said it was TIF money that did that, and it's not TIF money. TIF money cannot be used for that. TIF money has nothing to do with that. It's hotel guest tax that will be paying for these new decorations, and they'll be coming in. I think city managers already ordered them. The mayor's already looked at them. So continuing to support downtown, encouraging businesses to be there, being an open door for them. I am in agreement with the festivals that I'm not in agreement that the city run them, but they provide opportunities for people, the Chamber, Main Street, whoever, to run the festivals, and we give them support, financial as well as police, fire protection, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner.
First of all, I would like to commend the city for everything that they are doing already. The renovation of the Lost, the hotels. Yes, bringing residents down there will bring people down there. People then need goods and services. So the next phase is to try maybe small businesses, small business loans, encourage them to populate the downtown, because I think what everybody's also looking for is what's the character, what would draw somebody to come to the downtown from outside Leavenworth. We all know what it's like here. We'll go there. And yes, I wish we had more festivals like we did in the past. They were fun. Those are some of the fondest memories that our family has, is going down there for like Sippin' Cider Days and Riverfest and things. So yes, if we can re-energize those. But I think we also need a plan, an organized long-range plan that we can work in phases to build upon those things that we've already done. Because now that those are done, now what are you going to do? And unless we have that goal, that plan, or a vision and what we want it to look like, what we want it to feel like, how we want to feel about it, I don't think we'll ever get there, because we don't seem to know what we want, but we're going to keep trying things. And my background as a planner is that's the first thing you need to do, is have that vision and a goal to go towards, or you don't know if you're going in the right direction. So.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rainey.
Yes, as far as revitalizing, downtown, as far as our foot traffic and our people down there, I believe the aesthetics of downtown could be improved. The festivals, I believe, should come back. I'd like to see the Riverfest or something of that nature back here again. I think that was a wonderful thing downtown when people were able to celebrate down there and walk the sidewalks and see the shops we have. As far as revitalization downtown in general, I think a lot of people, especially in the instant world we live in nowadays, if they want something, they want to see the finished product right away. We don't have the finished product as we want right away. But if you look at what we are doing downtown, we are currently revitalizing it. When you've got a bridge replacement, again, hotels going in, we've got businesses that have opened up. Once these hotels together open up, you're going to have more foot traffic downtown, which is going to increase the shoppers. It's going to increase the flow downtown. So we are revitalizing it. It's just not a finished product yet. It's happening. If you go downtown and take the time and walk and visit some of the shops and some of the specialties that they do, the Main Street does a wonderful job putting on Alive After 5 events. There's all sorts of events that go on down to the Candle Queen. I know sponsors one or two down there. So the downtown is doing actually very well, and it is being revitalized. It's just, I think a lot of people don't see a finished product yet, so they don't think we've got there yet. But I'm proud of the downtown. I think we're on the right track, and I think if we get more festivals downtown and more people down there, you'll see the positive result. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At this point, all of you have gotten to answer first on one question, and I've tried to stay in order, and I've just written down your names in a random order, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed in that direction. And the next question, I would like to go on record as stating I did not submit, I had nothing to do with it, and I wonder whether I should even ask it, but it was a question that was submitted. And that question is, and please be gentle with your answers, should the efforts of Main Street and the Chamber of Commerce be combined into one organization? And I'm going to go to Mr. Griswold first.
Not necessarily. It would be something that I would want to delve into, but Leavenworth, Lansing Chamber of Commerce, I think, has a broader mission than Leavenworth, Main Street. What I would focus on would be the relationship between the two organizations and between those two organizations and the City Commission. Is it as vibrant and forward-looking as it needs to be? So that's my feeling at this point. That's my answer.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Weekly.
No, I think our community is better served by having a Main Street and a Chamber of Commerce. It's also the Leavenworth Lansing Chamber of Commerce, which makes us a unique hybrid in that, which provides its own challenges on that. But the Chamber of Commerce covers the entire town, all types of businesses, but it doesn't focus so much on retail. Main Street strictly focuses on downtown with its 4 points of development, and it focuses more on retail development and support, where the chamber hasn't in the past in our community on that. As a retail business, a former retail business owner, Main Street fits my needs better. It does combined advertising. It offers me support that I can find nowhere else as a small business owner on that. But when the Main Street and the Chamber do work together, they work together as our ED partners and that. So also in conjunction with LCDC, which brings industrial and commercial development here. Having all of those partners together and all of those businesses, because that's the business community and local government working together, provide the greater percentage of success for our community to remain viable, to attract new businesses, to attract people to our community.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wilson.
I truly believe, I think it should be separate because once you focus on accomplishing, you can accomplish more focusing on your strengths. And Main Street, their strength is focusing on the downtown area. Chambers of Commerce, they're great with the businesses, not just in the Leavenworth area, but as well as the Lansing area and also with the young professionals. And so, like I said, it kind of opens the door to a different crowd, and that crowd that they attract, they teach them about the businesses and not just focus locally, but to expand their minds out. So.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rainey.
To answer the question, should they be combined? At this time, I would have to say no. I respect both entities. They do a wonderful job in the strengths of what each of them do. And I also commend you and the job you do with the Chamber of Commerce. So to answer that question, no, I don't feel they should be combined. I think they do a good job. Of course, we can always look for improvements on any entity, which be either through your activities or through communications, with the commission or the city. But aside from that, no, I don't think they should be combined.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Peisinger.
No, I do not believe they should be combined. By definition, the Chamber of Commerce as well as Main Street have separate missions. I know they coordinate efforts quite often, as well they should, but they are separate entities and they should remain as such. Leavenworth Lansing Chamber of Commerce has a much broader mission. Main Street is very concentrated in the 32 square blocks or whatever the square block area that where their mission exists, and they do that well. The Chamber does it well. They work together when they need to, but they must remain separate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner.
Well, I agree that each of them have their own functional responsibilities that they need to focus on. But sometimes I believe, and other people that I've talked to feel the same way, is that somehow they're disjointed. They don't seem to work together as a team. And that's all of the agencies that are supposed to be helping people, from the County Economic Development Department to these two agencies. They seem not to be at odds, but not on this, playing on the same team. And I would encourage those groups to get together more often than what they are now and share their successes and their challenges with each other, so that if one runs across something or has experience in that area, you know, they can share that. We're all professional people with a lot of experiences that are untapped, and I would like to see more sharing and more cooperation.
Thank you, sir. Next question. What do you consider the major challenges facing the Leavenworth City Commission in 2018? And again, a random list of names. I'm going to start with you, Commissioner Weekly.
Okay, some of our major challenges for 2018, and I'd say probably the toughest one would be our stormwater management. You know, and we're going to need to go to the citizenry and say that, state our case that this is our infrastructure, which is crumbling, and it drastically needs attention to that. And unfortunately, we're all going to, as a community, figure out on how we're going to pay for that. So that is going to be one of our long-range challenges on that, going forward as a community.
Okay. Mr. Wilson.
I want to say reducing the crime rate, and also what are we going to do about the homeless? We've noticed that there's been an increase in numbers in the homeless throughout the downtown area. What exactly are we going to have in place that's going to, you know, clean up that area, so that way it's not just people just always constantly down there, and also just involving the community more inside of the city meeting, so everyone's aware of what's going on throughout the public.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rainey.
I'm going to pretty much echo what Commissioner Weekly said, because as far as I'm aware and everything that we've got going on here in the City Commission, that's one of the biggest headaches I can see coming down the pike for 2018 is the infrastructure and the sewer systems and how it's going to be paid for. We have other issues that we'll be dealing with, but as far as one of the biggest challenges for us is going to be how are we going to fix this, how are we going to pay for it. So I honestly think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for this year.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Griswold.
The first challenge would be the investment in time that we would need to take as a commission to develop the unifying, achievable, and forward-looking vision that I've talked about previously in this forum. Because the normal routine business of the commission in supporting the city will have to go on, but I am committed to talking and convincing, if elected, my fellow commissioners that this will be time well spent and would involve representatives from across Leavenworth, which I've already mentioned, citizens from all walks, community leaders of other community organizations, educational organizations, business people, and of course the city manager and his staff and the commissioners. So I do have an idea of the process that we could use. I think to do it right would take 3 to 6 months. And I believe, because if you don't have buy-in from the city, then this vision is just going to be dead on arrival. So looking at a very deliberate process, and one that would take, to do right, 3 to 6 months. In terms of the infrastructure, yes, I do believe the stormwater system is a challenge, and the city is coming to grips with that. There are going to be 2 public meetings coming up, one at the end of this month and one in October. And as a member of the public, I will expect to be able to review options, at least 2 and preferably 3 or 4, presented to the commission by city management. For each option, I will be looking for the results of a cost-benefit analysis, a matrix which compares all options against decision criteria, and then management recommendations on which options offer the best bang for the buck. This is really a decision that will affect the city for decades into the future, and we're talking tens of millions of dollars. So there has to be a deliberate decision-making process that the commission does its due diligence in order to make sure we make the right decisions on that storm sewer system.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner.
Well, what I would like to see is downtown redevelopment and community pride. I think if we set a goal that's an achievable goal and can show success in the downtown area, then the rest of the city will get on board and try to do other things that will also help the community. Things like infrastructure will always be there. There'll always be a problem. But it doesn't touch everybody, and it's not something that city can, that people can see or touch. Most of it's underground, and the only time you see it's when it floods. But if you improve the downtown and you have a nice place to work and a nice place to live, and a nice place to shop and some place to take your family, I think that would do a whole lot more to improving the pride in this community than most anything else we're looking at.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger.
As Commissioner Weekly said, the stormwater sewer situation is the biggest single challenge, I think, facing the Commission right now. We have identified the problem. We know what the fix is. We have looked at the alternatives. Now, how do we finance it? How do we pay? How is it paid for? There's different alternatives that are being floated, and we're evaluating all of those. But we have done our due diligence on that. It's not, we haven't just said, let's fix it. We have an infrastructure. Stormwater drainage is 120 to 140 years old in parts of this town, and we're the oldest city in Kansas, and we have to fix it. We have no options. We do have goals and visions for the city. We meet annually, and we do establish goals and visions, and we advertise that, and we invite people from the public to come in and give their input, and we do have some people that do participate in those goals and visions. So we are not just a leaderless or a rudderless commission. We do those things. The biggest challenge still remains, in my opinion, one of the bigger challenges, or an ongoing challenge, is code enforcement, removal of blighted property, cleaning up of properties, having property owners take responsibility for their property, not only to themselves, but to their neighborhoods. We have an issue. We are taking it on, but we need to take it on harder and harder every day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This just received from the crowd. All of you have talked about wanting to bring more business into town. If you could, please be a little more specific and explain how you would plan to get this done. We're going to start with you, Commissioner Rainey.
Well, we work closely with Main Street, LCDC, CVB, to bring these two businesses to town. It's not up to me to call or to get a hold of companies and say, we want you here in Leavenworth. It never is. We do have the people in the proper positions to bring business to town. I think they do a very good job at doing such. As you can see, again, as we talked about some of the businesses that have located downtown. So that's my basic answer. We've got good managers in place that do this, and I think they continue to do a good job at this.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Griswold.
The Leavenworth Convention and Visitors Bureau, Leavenworth County Development Corporation, Leavenworth Main Street, those are organizations that the commission needs to continue to work with. Not having been a member of the commission, I don't know what they're doing in terms of generating prospective business. It would seem that 21st century businesses in the science, technology, engineering, and math area would be something that I would like to see LCDC, Leavenworth Main Street emphasize. We have, of course, a great workforce and great human capital within the city of Leavenworth in the science, technology, engineering, and math area. St. Mary's offers a undergraduate degree in STEM. We have the Kansas City Community College Career Center in the Old West Middle School. We have Fort Leavenworth. So once again, just knowing that we have these organizations, I would be looking to encourage and strengthen the relationships between the City Commission and those organizations that I just talked about.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger.
I think it is the job of some city commissioners and the mayor to possibly contact some businesses. We have the horsepower. I can make a phone call, announce myself as a city commissioner, mayor pro tem, or mayor, and people will talk with me. When Country Mart closed down a couple weeks, or announced they're closing down, I called Sprouts headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, talked to the Kansas, Missouri development person for Sprouts, the grocery store, and asked them to evaluate Leavenworth. They took the coordinates, the city manager provided them with plans, or the building, what was available. That is their business decision then. But it is our job as commissioners to call in people that you know and use your influence to at least set the table for businesses. If I hadn't called a Hilton senior vice president 8 years ago about why can't we get a hotel, we still wouldn't have hotels here. So you want city commissioners that can do things like that. We've got an industrial park. We're setting that up for industry. That's not retail. So we're setting the table for businesses to come here. We want them to come here. We're providing them a nice area to do it. We provide incentives. Companies come. We have a maximum that we can give, but we can also do some negotiating on different incentives, and we have done that with many businesses, and we will continue to. We will bring businesses here. We just want to be an inviting city to have them come here. And we need to use our influence, whether jointly as a commission or individually as commissioners. You have to know how to get business. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilson.
Working with mainstream and different business organizations, and also, like Mr. Mark Preisinger said, reaching out to those investors and those who want to start small businesses, and actually providing a tax incentive that's going to help motivate them to want to start a business as well, too.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner.
Well, first, I think there are some short-term goals and long-term goals. Short-term goals would be the small businesses. People that are retiring from the military that want to start a second career and open up a small business, a small store in a downtown. Also, that would help for that downtown redevelopment. So I think that's something that we should, as a city, concentrate on and work on that as a day-to-day, month-to-month goal. The industrial parks, the large corporations, the hotel groups or whatever, those should be left to the professionals that know the kind of data that those people are looking for, can prepare it for, sell our city to them, and then when they come, then we can start the negotiations. But those, I think, are long-term, and I would prefer looking at all of the things that we can do short-term right now to start moving in the right direction.
Thank you, sir. And Commissioner Weekly.
As a city commissioner, especially I've sat as the mayor 3 times, you are involved in the process. Our economic development partners, the city funds those partners, so you have to be involved in that. You have to be aware of what resources, what programs, what TIFs are, what our incentives are, because people are going to come and you're going to meet them, and you have to have your act together and know what you're doing to be able to present your city in the best light. So that is going to be one of your active duties if you are city commissioner. With my background in lending and banking, it served as a good foundation for me. And I would like to continue to offer those services and be able to serve on the commission to do that. With our ED partners, often they take the lead on that, but it's a mixture of comes in. Sometimes they call the city directly, sometimes they work through one of our partners on that. But the moment that it's identified that they're interested in your city, the mayor and the commission become engaged in that process to help decide if there's incentives, what they're going to offer. There aren't always incentives, but is that a good fit for the community? What are they bringing to our community, and what are they asking for? It's a dialogue and it's a negotiation, and that's something as a commissioner you're going to be very active involved, and I would like to continue to work with the city on that. I hope I have your support.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question. What do you consider the strengths of the current city commission? We're going to start with you, Mr. Wilson. Strengths of the city commission.
Are you talking about the individually, personally, currently now? That we have?
The current sitting city commission.
I want to say when Mr. Mark Preisinger, he's a business guy. Like I said, he's very well with numbers. He's very proactive. going toward those investors and bringing different businesses here. Miss Lisa Weekly, she's actually involved in so many different organizations. She has a hand in, and she's very knowledgeable about the current issues. And Mr. Rainey, he's definitely involved in the community. I think he does a great job with letting the people know exactly what's going on with the city commissioner on this Eye on Leavenworth page.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger, what do you think current strengths of the city commissioner?
I think we have 5 commissioners that are obviously dedicated to make Leavenworth a better place to live, work, invest, and raise a family. I think every commissioner has the best interest of Leavenworth at heart. Obviously, there's some disagreement among some of the commissioners at times, but we do come together as a team, and everything that we do, in my opinion, we hope to do for the betterment of the city of Leavenworth. And I think we achieve that for the most part, and that is a strength of our city commission.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rainey.
Yeah, I agree with the strengths of the 5 of us that are currently serving, is we do have 5 definitely individual personalities. And there are a lot of issues that we may not always agree on. You'll see paying bills, you'll see a lot of 5-0 votes, and on other issues, you'll see 3-2s and 4-1s. But I think that's what the city needs, and that's what the people want. I don't think the city would want a commission where everything that came up was one-sided, 5-0, all down the line for 2 and 4 years. I think we need to have a diversity on here. And I think even though some of us don't agree at times on the issue, I think we all work well in putting grievances aside and making the final decisions for the city. And I think we've done a very good job at that. So I think we do a good job at working well together to do what's best for the city.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner.
I also feel that all the current sitting commissioners are dedicated to their positions, are sincerely interested in the city of Leavenworth and trying to make it a better place for all of us. One distinct advantage that a majority of them have is they've been in the position for long enough that they're very comfortable in their positions and know the things that will come up, the things that have to be actioned, solutions for some of the problems that come up. Some, I guess, if what they tried didn't work, at least they have the know withal to try something different and not repeat the same mistakes. So that experience that they have is valuable in helping to maintain a steady city commission.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Weekly.
That we do work very well together. I think it's very obvious in other places in our community what happens when leaders don't work well together on that. We don't always agree. Sometimes we have very lively discussions on that, but we always keep it professional. I think we also know each other enough, and that we'll probably be able to figure out this is where this person's going to stand on this issue. This is the arguments I'm going to give him. They may not work, but we're going to use those anyway. And the goal is to always keep the city moving forward, and I think that as a commission that we have done that very well. And like I said, we all have the best interest in heart. We may not always agree, but I think we're a good representation of the different aspects of our community also.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Griswold.
They are the current city commission. All of them are dedicated public servants, and I admire them and respect them for giving up their time and talents. They are also, if you watch come to the meetings or watch any of the meetings on television, they're a collegial body, which is very, very important in getting things done for the citizens of Leavenworth. Finally, in terms of Mr. Preisinger and Ms. Weekly, I would say that they've been on the commission for quite a few years, and you develop an institutional knowledge that for any candidates that are new to the board, that is going to be a steep learning curve that will have to be climbed, and if they are elected to the commission.
Okay. Thank you, sir. The next question was just also recently submitted from the crowd, and it's a very specific question, but I think what I will ask you to do is, as I point out the specific question, we could look at it maybe through a larger lens, a more overarching lens, maybe from an ordinance or even a safety point of view. The specific question is on the topic of motorized wheelchairs. For example, why are they allowed on the streets, not kept on the sidewalks? Should they have to have a license on the chair or have rules? So from a general safety or ordinance point of view, what are your thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Mr. Bogner.
Well, I didn't know people were driving motorized wheelchairs in the streets
So
of
well
Leavenworth.
kept secret.
I have seen them, get out of their car, park in a parking lot and go to a business and go down sidewalks, but I didn't know that was really an issue. I would say I would need more facts before I can really offer an opinion on whether or not it needs an ordinance or license tags or something, because I don't know that it's a huge problem, but I know it's a huge concern, especially for the people that do have wheelchairs. And I would try to figure out what exactly are the problems, specific problems that we could address a specific answer for.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Weekly.
It's interesting. I have an interesting experience in this. A citizen called me one time on this, and they are not cars. They are not supposed to be on the streets. They should be on the sidewalks. That's why we have handicap accessibility on our sidewalks, and we're working towards that. It was during a snowstorm, and there was a lady that constantly liked to go out for her morning constitutional. And one frantic citizen called me and said, why don't we do something about this on that? And we have numerous times. The police have addressed the lady and please ask her to stay off the street and to use the sidewalk. And unfortunately, during the snowstorm, things were not shoveled as readily. And I had to inform that citizens, yes, I'm well aware. She even comes by my house, and I have pleaded with her personally to please stop riding in the streets on that. It's not that we don't do anything, it's sometimes people just don't cooperate. She was bound and determined to have her morning constitutional outside, just as if we would take a walk, and nothing was going to deter her from doing that. So I guess we work with those issues one-on-one through the police department, through city services, and try to deal with them the best that we can, because obviously you cannot be arresting or ticketing people in their wheelchairs. That's just not good form. We're just going to have to appeal to their better angels on that.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wilson.
To prevent accidents or any injuries, wheelchairs need to definitely be staying on the sidewalks. They're just public safety, so.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger.
I don't believe that wheelchairs require licensing. I think that's a little bit of an overreach. My wife and I, on our way down here, we stopped at a new restaurant down at 2nd and Choctaw, and we in fact saw a woman in a motorized wheelchair downtown coming up on the street. I believe that it should be enforced. We have, as long as the streets or sidewalks are ADA accessible, and most of ours downtown, and all new ones in town are ADA accessible, I think it should be enforced. I would not necessarily propose an ordinance at this time. I would I'd like to consult with the police chief and get his opinion as well as other people's opinion on how that to be done. But I don't think the City Commission should just do that on its own. But it is an issue that it's a safety issue, not only for the person in the wheelchair, but also for vehicles. Swerving a miss could cause another accident, and common sense should prevail. If, in the middle of a snowstorm or something like that, if somebody's in the street because they can't get on the sidewalk, obviously common sense will prevail. But for the most part, they should be on sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner?
You already went.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you try to be random. I apologize. Commissioner Rainey.
Yes, I'm just going to echo what the other candidates, commissioners had already said, that we have done a very good job of upgrading the sidewalks downtown for a few years and making them ADA accessible. So going by ordinances, they need to be up on the sidewalks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Griswold.
I agree that the motorized wheelchairs don't need licensing. They do need to remain on the sidewalks. My point about institutional knowledge, I think, was borne out with Mrs. Weekly's response, which was quite amazing and comprehensive. So I would have to learn more facts, but I think it's pretty straightforward. Keep them on the sidewalks. The only other thing that I would add is that getting the word out. I mean, communication, all means of communication, should be used to get the word out in terms of what the ordinance is and what our citizens need to be doing terms of operating their motorized wheelchairs.
Okay, thank you, sir. For the crowd, when we first began, I informed the candidates that we might not have time for them to make any sort of closing statements. We have one question left and enough time that I think we can roll that final question into closing statements. Would the candidates be opposed to doing that? Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and have my timekeeper set for 3 minutes. And I'm going to go back to my very original rotation. The final question is, which you will then roll into your closing, why do you want to serve? And I'm going to start with Commissioner Weekly.
Okay. Why do I want to serve? To me, as I said earlier, my time on the commission has been public service, helping people to solve their problems and their concerns and to be there for them, and I'd like to continue to do that. Being accessible, returning phone calls, even when you're faced with difficult situations, to just be head-on and do that. I've served on several organizations on that, so I have a pretty good feel on different aspects of the community. Participation is the most important thing in that, so people see you and they see what you're about. They feel comfortable asking questions of you, and being open and accessible to the public, I think, is the main duty of a commissioner, and I think I've demonstrated the ability to do that. Why I think I should continue to serve is that I do have proven leadership on the commission. I've been proactive in providing incentives to attract new businesses, supporting existing businesses in the community. I've had to deal with good budgets and bad budgets on that. Fortunately, right now, we're in a position where we can build on our strengths to keep Leavenworth growing in a vibrant community, and that is my vision for the community. I know that's come into question here a lot. What do I want to see Leavenworth be? I want to see Leavenworth be the very best community it can be. It's viable. Its citizens feel safe. Young and retired are attracted to live and work here. In our business community and local government working together to benefit the community as a whole, to bring jobs, to bring living wages to our community on that. The goal in that is to expand our tax base, to relieve the burden of taxes for all, and to build a family-friendly community. As a leader, I think I've demonstrated fiscal responsibility. I've worked to provide quality services in good times and bad. I've worked to reduce city property taxes and to equalize the tax burden for all citizens. I've worked to improve public safety and provide additional resources to our police to revitalize our downtown with hotel development. And I want to continue to provide for the future growth of the community through the support of our business park and our economic resources to make sure that we have the types of businesses and living wages that we can be proud of. I will continue to work for all citizens in the community and to see that Leavenworth is the city in Kansas to live, work, and raise a family in. So I'm asking for your vote on November 7th.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Rainey, why do you want to serve?
Why do I want to serve? As a voter in this town for many years, as we all get accustomed to having politicians and people come to your door asking to be your voice at City Hall or the county courthouse or state, and you make your choice. And what I've seen as a voter for many years at that is once you make your choice and that person, he or she, gets into whichever office, you never hear from them again. You can't reach them anymore. And it's really hard for you to understand if they came to your door once asking to be your voice. When I ran for this office, I did ask to be the voice of the people here in Leavenworth and represent them through my time and going out in public and talking to people through social networking. I have done a very good job at communicating with the people, finding out what their interests are, whether it be the festival issues, whatever issues they may have, signs, roads, or what have you. I'm running again because I still feel that the people should have someone like that, that is always out there for them, that is always listening to them. In listening to the problems, it enabled me to realize the warrant situation we had in this town, which we were able to get the Amnesty Day passed to help get people alleviated from those situations. There's just a lot of things that you hear on the city side, but unless you're out there with the public, you're not going to hear it. I enjoy going to the public. I enjoy listening and talking to the people, and I will always be there for you. So I strongly ask that you continue to support me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bogner, why do you want to serve?
Well, there's no real easy answer to that. I'm a very civic-minded person, and I think I've shown that over the years from my volunteer work on the Planning Commission, the Preservation Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals. I even served some time on the Water Board, and I think that opened my eyes to the possibilities that you can do to make a difference. On the board, you certainly make a difference, and you see a wide range of things that happens in the city. And working for the Army, same thing, taking care of the soldiers up there and interacting with the state and the local and the federal agencies and the Army as a whole. You learn that there's a big picture to things. You learn that the only way to get things done are to cooperate and to share ideas and to bring in talent. And I think with all my experiences, I do have talent that I can use to contribute to making Leavenworth a better place to live and to work, and to invite people to come share our experiences here for those things that we love so well about being here in Leavenworth. So I also would appreciate your vote in November to represent you as a city commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Preisinger.
I do have an agenda why I'm running. My agenda is and remains and has always been the betterment of the city. I'm not in this for personal gain. I've always contributed. I've spent 6 years in the Army, active duty. I've spent 8 years on the school board, 8.5 years on the city commission. I continue to serve my country quietly and will always do so. I take it as a strong civic responsibility. I do listen to people, the community, take calls, go out and visit people. I do not close. I don't have any agendas or any platforms where only certain people can call me or other people can't see what's being said. Open it up for everyone. I want to do what's right for the city. It does require a commissioner, and if new ones get elected, there is a bit of a learning curve, which is natural. But once you're on the commission, you should know that you have to get down in the weeds on what is happening. You have to understand what tax incremental financing is, what a CID is, what hotel guest tax is and how they're different, what enterprise funds are, ad valorem taxes. Those are not things I want to bore you with here, but it does require a commissioner to know what those are. But they have to have a vision for the city, and they have to be committed to making the city a better place. I've always been committed to making this place a better place to live, work, invest, and raise a family, and I remain committed to that. And I would appreciate your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Griswold.
This was the first question that I posed and answered at the beginning of the forum. Why do I want to serve, or why am I running? And I will repeat the 3 or 4 points that I made at the beginning of this forum. I hear from friends, colleagues, and citizens in general that Leavenworth never changes, or if it does change, it's very incremental and slow change. I agree, and I am tired of the status quo, and I would like to see the city catapulted into the future and pick up the pace of change in these areas and on these issues that we've talked about tonight. I love my hometown, and there is a great reservoir of untapped potential with Leavenworth. I've got great personal relationship building skills, and I do, if elected, intend to employ those skills to help untap that potential within our city, and I know how to do that. I've done it in my military career, 30 years, 8 years as a colonel, and I've done it in my business career over the last 14 years. I have the leadership ability, expertise, experience, energy, and values to help unleash this potential, as I just said, and improve the quality of life of all citizens within the city. And I said what I wanted to do in terms of a broad, really emphasis in terms of what I want to do is that working with the Leavenworth citizens, working with business leaders, working with the leaders of other organizations, community organization, educational institutions within the city manager and fellow commissioners, I plan to develop a unifying, achievable, and forward-thinking vision for the city. And I disagree with Mr. Preisinger. The city does not have a vision. I challenge anyone to ask the 5 commissioners. You will get 5 different answers, and there's nothing in writing. And it doesn't take like 2 or 3 meetings to get a good vision and to get buy-in. It takes 3 to 6 months of really getting these people to come in, get around the table, and churn and develop a vision. It can't be done by the commission itself. In terms of goals and objectives, yes, there are goals and objectives. I understand that they've been developed earlier in 2018, but if they're not tied to a vision, then what do they really mean? I sat in on the budget meetings in 2 or 3 months ago, maybe 2 months ago in July. I didn't hear any of the department heads talk about the goals and objectives that the commission had set for the city in terms of how that related to their budget inputs for 2018. That's a big problem. So you have that connection from vision, goals and objectives, and the budget. I can bring that discipline. I know how those type of situations and those type of processes work. I understand deliberate decision-making process. I understand cost-effective analysis, cost-benefit analysis that has to be done. And so I ask you to support me in the election, and I ask for your vote on the 7th of November. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilson.
My goal is to help meet the needs of the people in the community and create the change that is needed to make our community a safe and better place for our children and our family as well. Our community needs someone who's going to represent the people in the community, someone who's not afraid to make change. I've been proactive in this community for many, many years, from community events, investing off in the youth, and also being a mentor inside of the elementary schools. Even though I made a mistake in my life, since then, my record has been expunged. My goal is to do what's best for the people in the community. It's to unite the people, to help people not focus on the division or past mistakes that anybody have been through in life. Because at the end of the day, we're all still human beings. I want the people to focus on the things that I've currently accomplished and the vision that I have for the city as well. And I hope and pray that I have your support November the 7th. And one thing I always say, together we can make a difference. God bless y'all.
Thank you, sir. And before I close everything and offer my thank yous, I'd like to give the floor to Jeanette.
All right. I would like to thank the candidates very much for coming today, and of course the audience. It's wonderful that you're here with us and having these good questions, and we're able to figure out where we want to go in the future. I believe some of the candidates have flyers or something outside the door when you leave. You're welcome to pick something up from there. And I specifically want to thank my friend here for being our moderator today. He always does such an exceptional job. That's why he always gets that job. And thank you so much, Natalie, for coming and being our timekeeper. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you all for coming out tonight, folks. Have a great night. Thanks, Mike.